Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp baseball team that plays right by the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got Papa Joe in the flesh a couple days early because I'm down here in St. Augustine and I couldn't have a show without sitting next to PJ. So we are here for you on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage as well as mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, and you're also finding us here where sports meets that thing called life on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and facebook.com/livenowdt. So we appreciate you being here inside, like I said, the Travel Cafe Kubal Studios, which means Cafe Kubal here with us, and they're here with you in Central New York on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, as well as in downtown Syracuse inside of Galisano's Children's Hospital, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and their newest location and their first ever drive-through location, which will be awesome in the winter and such, and that is out at the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road on Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse, New York. So with that being said, I officially welcome next to me Mr. Papa Joe. PJ, how we doing?
Good morning, Daniel. It's so nice to have you down here for a couple of days. And your listeners enjoy my beautiful home. And hopefully we'll have a good show.
Yeah, and we got a lot to talk about here, a lot to unpack, folks. We're going to do what we did last week. We're going to start with baseball, then we're going to go to college football and the NFL. We're going to talk about the MLB playoff hunt. The Yankees are back in it. They decided to get the broom out at the most perfect time and sweep them Sox. So we'll discuss a lot of different things going on with baseball. Then we'll get into a large college football slate, which will see us covering the AAC, the quote-unquote Power 5, as well as what's going on here with Notre Dame and whatnot. So we will have full coverage here, and we'll be giving you our picks for Week 5 of college football, which means Papa Joe and I are going to get very, very involved with this, and we have a lot of different teams to get to. Those teams that we're going to get to, games we're going to get to, we have Virginia at Miami, Arkansas at Georgia, as well as Michigan at Wisconsin, Tennessee at Missouri, Western Michigan and my guy Tim Lester at Buffalo with my guy Mike Washington Jr., Cincinnati at Notre Dame, and we also have Ole Miss at Bama, Oregon at Stanford, Mississippi State at Texas A&M, Baylor at Oklahoma State, Florida at Kentucky, and Syracuse at FSU down here in the great state of Florida. Then we're going to get into what we think about those 0-3 Jaguars, and then we'll get in from the 0-3 Jaguars. We'll give our thoughts on the contenders versus the pretenders in the NFL. So with that being said, Papa Joe, let's jump into Major League Baseball and get your thoughts about where things stand right now in the majors as we look toward the playoff hunt and teams try their last final push to get into the playoffs.
Well, it's still a fluid situation, and it really hasn't changed a lot since last week. The big boys have already clinched, meaning Tampa Bay, Chicago White Sox. I think situation, and it really hasn't changed a lot since last week. National League, Atlanta, Philadelphia still battling it out. My Brewers have clinched, and San Francisco and LA is a very unusual situation over there, and I will explain that. It's conceivable that the best team in baseball this year, the Dodgers, it's conceivable that they could be in a wild card situation. As strange as that seems, the way the performance is set up, that's something that we've got to look at. I mean, I'd rather them win the pennant and San Francisco go into the wild card, but they're both excellent teams. San Francisco keeps winning, keeps holding LA at bay. And we'll just have to see what happens with it. I'd sort of like to made a little bit of a baby graph here that I like. It looks like it either New York, Boston, or Toronto is going to wind up being the wild card from the American League. Whoever that is going to wind up playing Tampa Bay because they're the winners in the American League. And then the White Sox play Houston if Houston wins. National League side is it's still I got actually St. Louis, and as we speak right now, I have St. Louis and L.A. as the wild card,
okay.
And whoever wins that game will play San Francisco in the playoffs. So it's a very fluid situation yet, and the scary part is that Los Angeles could be, with their top 4 pitching staff, could be left out in a wild card situation where one game can, gets them into the playoff. I can't believe that, but San Francisco and LA are both that good. And I told you that at the beginning of the year that the pennant and the World Series is going to go through the National League West. I thought that San Diego would do a much better job, but they hadn't, and they're a major disappointment. But I like where everything is right now. I'm looking for LA to make a late push. I'm looking for San Francisco maybe to lose a few games. So we'll see what happens. Nothing's really changed at all.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, well, I mean, the one thing that has changed is that the Yankees gave themselves life again.
Yep.
And they went in and they went up against the Sox, and they, like I said, got out the broom at the biggest, most important time. The Yankees, a team that were in 4th out of 5th in the AL East, that fell out of favor, that after the All-Star break, I thought eventually we would see this Yankees team bounce back, and they did, and then they bounced back, and then they bounced backward, and now they're back again. And here's hoping for Yankee fans out there that this seesaw kind of back and forth that they've had, that they actually hold on this time and push forward, because as of right now, they have the slight edge over Boston.
Both teams pound the hell out of the ball. The Yankees with Aaron Judge and Mike Stanton and DJ LeMahieu, who is their best player, by the way, and for you Yankee fans out there. And Brett Gardner, they got a bunch of guys that just pound the hell out of the ball. And Boston does too, with their 5 guys that have over 20 home runs. But that's the way the series usually is. It's set up with a hard-hitting team versus a National League team that has a low ERA and steals bases and things like that. So the performance is not going to change at all. We just have to determine who's going to go where. And Boston, they have one big stud, which is Chris Sale, which is back pitching again. I think he's 5-0 since he came off the IR. And on the Yankee side, you got Garrett Cole, who can beat anyone, anytime, anywhere, any place. He's a stud. So, in order to beat the Yankees in Boston, you're going to have to score more runs than they do, obviously, because their pitching is not going to hold up.
And that's the thing is, looking at the Yankees, do they have enough? I mean, at the beginning of the season, and this is kind of interesting that they're both right now in the wild card hunt, but in the beginning of the season, my prediction was Dodgers-Yankees for the World Series. Can the Yankees survive the American League?
That's a good question. It depends on their bats. I've always felt that good pitching can undo good hitting, and I like the National League for that purpose because they play better as a team. While the American League just pounds it, gets a lot of runs. The Yankees can win 10-8, 9-7, very rarely.
Yeah.
Unless you have Garrett Cole pitching, will they win 2-1 or 3-2 or something like that? So the Yankees and Boston both can survive because they have big bats that can carry them.
Yeah, and looking at the Sox now, if the Yankees get this right now and they hold on, they'll be hosting the wild card. How much does that play into it that we could be in the Bronx when they play the Sox?
That'd be a lot of fun. That I'd be looking forward to because that place will be rocking. Let me tell you. One thing I've noticed in the last couple of weeks and even for the next 10 days or so before the season is over is that the stadiums are not full. They're not even half full.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing to say that, but I don't know how these guys can afford to pay Judge and Stanton and these guys millions and millions and millions of dollars without their cable package. So most of the big teams though have a pretty good payroll and they augment it by using the money from their cable listings, cable games.
Yeah. So as we look at this and as we, step forward here in the playoffs as it stands right now, Tampa at the top, obviously, of the AL East. They have clinched that. In the AL Central, the Chicago White Sox have clinched, and Houston, we're still waiting on them in the AL West, and then the wild card Yankees and Boston, as we spoke about. Toronto's still in this, Seattle's still in it, and Oakland has a slim chance. On the other side for the National League, we know that the San Francisco Giants are in the playoffs, but they haven't clinched the division of the NL West yet. And the Milwaukee Brewers, for you and your bros up in Milwaukee, as well as Miss Mary T and her family as a whole, the Milwaukee Brewers have clinched the NL Central and the NL East. The Atlanta Braves are at the top of it. They haven't clinched it yet. behind the Dodgers, St. Louis still has a chance. Cincinnati from here, in Philadelphia, San Diego, and the Mets very far behind. It's interesting to look between the NL and the AL, because in the NL wild card race, we have the Dodgers, who are in a great place right now, plus 13, and then St. Louis right behind them. The closest team to St. Louis is Cincinnati, who's 5.5 games back. The Mets are 13.5 games back. But if you go back to the wild card race in the American League, you got teams that are 1 game back, 1.5, 3.5. So the AL wild card a lot closer than the NL. The NL is almost completely set, where the AL, it seems like every team but the Orioles from the AL East are trying to get into the playoffs.
Right. I don't think anyone wants to play St. Louis right now because they've won 16 games in a row, which is a franchise record. They're doing it all, pitching and hitting. I don't think the Brewers want to play St. Louis. Let's put it that way. I think they would rather find one of either San Francisco or L.A. to knock Cardinals out. The Cardinals are going to. That's over with. National League is all done. Really, it's going to be the Cardinals and either San Francisco and or L.A. And on the other side, there's the 5 or 6 teams that are right there. But there are also only 1 or 2 games behind. Yeah. To get eliminated. So, if they lose a game, they're going to be gone.
Thoughts on the fact that the Jays made such a push to get in and were doing better than the Yankees, and then the Yankees got in front of them, but the Sox are still there. Do you feel some sadness for the Toronto Blue Jays that somehow they were within all this, and just a few days back they were playing the Tampa Bay Rays head-to-head and had a shot to give themselves some help? Are you a little bit sad for them that they had put themselves in a place where the Rays and the Jays would be repping the AL East, and now the Jays look like they might be left out?
Toronto still has a chance, but they're a young team. Their core, they got the Biggio kid, the Bichette kid, and the Guerrera kid. These are all young guys. These are early 20s. But they made the major leagues. I think the pressure probably got to them a little bit, and Toronto's not blessed with a lot of good pitching either. So wherever Guerrero goes is where Toronto is going to wind up. This kid, who's a very good chance of winning the Triple Crown in the American League, and it's going to be between him and Ohtani for the most valuable player of the league.
Yeah, so it's going to be, and we talked about the MVPs and the Manager of the Year races as well as the Cy Youngs. To go to that really quick, the Mets are 13.5 games back out of the wild card. No deGrom. There was a fear of this at the beginning of the season as he was playing so well and his ERA was under 1, and that he was going to set this record. And, as I'm walking around Cooperstown a few months ago, I'm thinking, as I saw the ERA record, that, that could change and I could come back in here and deGrom could be at the top of this list. Did they misuse him? Did they force him? I don't want to say did they force him to play, because Lord knows he wanted to play, but are we where we are right now because of my concern that I had at the beginning of the season, which was that they were not monitoring him enough, or he wasn't monitoring himself, or forcing to play? Are we where we are right now because there was maybe a selfishness on deGrom's part or on the Mets' part to keep him out there because of how well he hits and how well he pitches?
Well, that's true. It's a good point. He probably is overused a little bit, but they do have a good staff. They have Syndergaard is still playing for them, and Wheeler, they got rid of Wheeler to go to Philly. I don't know why they did that. Those three kids can carry a team. deGrom is a freak of nature. He's a big, tall, lanky guy, throws the ball well, got a big breaking ball, 99 mile an hour fastball. So I don't look for him to pitch again until next year. And the Mets are the Mets. They just can't seem to pull it together this year. I don't look for them to do any damage at all to any team playing for the next 10 days or so.
Who's better at hitting and pitching, Shohei Ohtani or Jacob deGrom?
You talking about Ohtani?
Yeah.
Oh, Ohtani's
Ohtani or deGrom? When we talk about...
Well, deGrom has already won a Cy Young Award, so you have to say he is the better, but Ohtani has such promise. Yeah. And I tell you, if it wasn't for MT giving me the Major League Baseball package, I wouldn't be able to look at Ohtani, and I watch him every time he pitched the other night. 7 innings, gave up 1 run, 5 hits, struck out 10. And he up to bat, he was 2 for 3 with 2 walks and 2 triples.
Yeah.
You know, the kid is amazing. I can't stress that enough. The baseball purists like myself, very rarely do you see someone like this come along. I remember the last time I remember someone like this is a player by the name of Rick Ankiel. He used to play for St. Louis. He was a pitcher and a hitter too, but he was so wild pitching that they just had to stop him pitching, and they wound up playing left and right field for him. And he could throw the ball 100 miles an hour too. It's very rare that you find someone like Ohtani. I don't know where I don't think he learned all this in Japan, but he's the real deal, and it's a pleasure to watch him play. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I think he was playing Baltimore, and Cedric Mullins is a leadoff hitter for Baltimore, and he's a real good hitter, period. And Ohtani sure grooved a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, gone, just like that. It went out as fast as it came in. So he's he just shook his head and got the ball and started pitching again. So he's the real deal. I would have to say that I want to see Ohtani exceed his expectations next year, because I want to see my Angels do something. It was
well, they shut down Trout. You know, they didn't even try to. You know, he obviously, once they were out of the playoff hunt and all that stuff, he was officially shut down. So we haven't seen him since May.
Trout will not play again this year.
Yeah.
And I don't understand what happened with him. If you have a hamstring, you either rehab it or you have it. If it came disconnected, you have to have surgery. He didn't have any surgery. So for all this for 6 months, he's been trying to rehab himself. There's got to be something more than that. Yeah. I don't get it. Trout is a very proud man. He certainly wants to be out there with a guy, that's for sure. I know he wanted to play with Ohtani carefully. Loved it, but it's too sad. It's sad. He's to me, he's the best player in baseball, and has been for years, and probably will be for the next couple of years. But some of these young guys are going to catch up to him pretty soon.
And seeing what we've seen with, kind of going back to talk about Shohei Ohtani as well as Jacob deGrom, is the reality of the fact that most pitchers don't hit well, and these two pitchers hit very well. You would think that a pitcher, because if they're a good pitcher and they know the ball and they know they got a good eye and they know what a pitch is supposed to look like coming in, that a pitcher should by nature be able to hit well because they can read it, because that's what they do. But the power and just the, kind of God-given talent is something that Ohtani and deGrom have, but there's such an enigma to the actual pitcher, like a Randy Johnson, who's lucky if he was batting 100. So, I guess we go back to the question that we've had before. If we have Ohtanis and deGroms, and we want to see them hit, but they're, very, 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 very hard to find, do we... Because I don't agree that one league should have one and one should have the other. I don't believe one league should pitch and the other league should hit have their pitcher hit, because it just doesn't make sense. It's like playing two different total leagues of baseball. Seriously, to say, okay, if you're in the American League, you got this. If you're in the National League, you got that. So where do you stand on this? Do we bring the universal DH that we saw during the COVID year, that there was kind of a look at this, but do we bring a universal DH, or do we just stop pitchers from hitting? Because if we do that as an entire Major League Baseball, then we lose watching Ohtani and deGrom.
That's true. I refer to Ohtani as a baseball player.
Yeah.
He's not a pitcher. He's not a hitter. He's not a fielder. He's a baseball player. And I'm a purist, and I want to see that. I'm not in favor of the DH anyway. I never have been. If a pitcher is pitching... that's why there's a difference between the American League and National League. National League wins on pitching and defense. The American, they just pound the hell out of the ball, and that's why they have a DH. They got 9 guys that can hit. The pitcher just sits on his butt and waits to pitch again. I don't like that. I'd rather them both be the same instead of being. But that's the nature of the game. You want to see something different, and I don't want to see that. I want to see it be uniform. And I want to be able to see deGrom, if he can hit. But I'd rather see him pitch. And Ohtani is, the way I feel about him. He's extraordinary.
Yeah, I think that it's very unfair to have a player in the American League whose job is literally just to hit the ball, and in the National League, if you're not named deGrom, to force them to have to hit, and a lot of the times it's embarrassing. It's an easy out.
Yep.
So, I think fairness is fairness. I don't understand how the National League and the American League have gotten away with this long, to say half of you have to and half of you don't. But I think, the way to go is the, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you make it uniform, but here's the thing is, if you have a universal DH, then we're not going to see our pitchers hit. So then we're not going to see Ohtani, and we're not going to see deGrom. So the question is, what do you do with them? And do you make a rule where, Ohtani and deGrom can continue to hit, that you almost, don't call it a universal DH, but you say that it's a choice. If you have a pitcher who can hit, that you can let him hit. I don't know. I feel like I don't want to stop seeing, selfishly, Ohtani and deGrom, but at the same time, either a universal DH or all pitchers have to hit, because having 15 do one and 15 do the other just doesn't seem fair.
Well, Ohtani would have to play a position if that were the case.
Yeah.
And he can play the outfield very well. He can play first base. He's not going to be a shortstop or a third baseman or anything like that, but being as tall as he is, 6'5" or so, he can play both left or right field and maybe even in first base. So if that were the case, he'd have to be a position player and not pitch. So I don't know. I want to see him do both. I'm greedy. I want to see him throw 100 miles an hour, and I want to see him hit a yard, go yard with 100 mile an hour. So I'm very disappointed in the Angels this year, and I knew this was going to happen once Trout got hurt. When Trout didn't come back after a couple of weeks, I said there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
And Justin Upton and Joe Adele and Anthony Rendon, the really good guys that play for Los Angeles, are not going to be able to carry that team without Trout. I say this every year about the Angels. So give Trout some help, please. But he's got enough hitters around him. I think now he's got enough hitters around him, but they need pitching. I told you a couple of months ago that when they had the draft, they had 20 selections. All 20 selections were pitchers. So where does that tell you where the Angels are now?
Yeah, and I do have to go back to Ohtani for a second here. Playing the field, which is what my dad told me to do when I was dating, but playing the field as well as pitching and hitting. Have you ever seen a player in the history of baseball who can play a position in the field, be a pitcher, and hit the way Ohtani does?
As I mentioned earlier, Rick Ankiel from the Cardinals was the only player in recent history that could do that. Unfortunately, he was a terrible pitcher because he could never find the plate. He threw fast, he threw hard, and he was a hell of a hitter. So that's the only one I can think of, unless we go back to the days of Babe Ruth. I'm old, but I don't remember Babe Ruth. And Mickey Mantle couldn't pitch, so that's the way it is.
Looking at something that was here, something that I brought up with the Toronto Raptors, who actually were displaced and had to play in Tampa. There was a statement that came in here from Greg, longtime listener and supporter, especially of PJ, said if it wasn't a COVID year that forced the Blue Jays to not have a true home field advantage, they would be easily sitting in a playoff spot. The pandemic specifically did the Jays dirty in 2021. I feel the same way about the Raptors. The Raptors have been making the playoffs every single year. They're the only team in the NBA of 30 teams. They're the only one that didn't get to sleep in their own beds, and I think that definitely affected them. So I can understand the Blue Jays comment. So.
Yes, I agree. Good point, Greg, and it's unfortunate. Maybe this COVID stuff will be done next year. I'm not looking forward to the next round of baseball because of what's going to happen. I want to be able to see Toronto play in their park and use those young kids that they have there to try to get a pennant. They need more pitching, obviously, too, but if you stay with the premise that I described earlier about the American League, where they're all hitting and very little pitching, and it's just opposite that way in the National League, pitching and defense. San Francisco is extraordinary this year. I also mentioned a couple of months ago that during the last 10 years, the Giants won the World Series 3 times, and they still have that. They still have the core guys that are still playing for him. They got Brandon Belt, leads the team in home runs. Brandon Crawford, probably the best all-around shortstop in the National League. Unbelievable guy. But and Buster Posey, the catcher from Florida State. These guys are in their early to mid 30s, and they can't go anymore. So I think I'm probably going to see the end of the way the Giants play baseball now. They're going to have to find a way to replace these guys. I think Crawford's probably got another year in him. Belt too. Buster Posey, I don't think he can catch anymore. It's just catching, unless you're Yadier Molina, who's a freak. You're not going to be able to catch in the National League for 10 or 12 years.
Or Pudge. Pudge Rodriguez.
No, this is Yadier Molina from the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying Ivan Rodriguez.
Yes.
What he was able to do. And my guy, Mr. Piazza, who's my favorite catcher of all time.
Sure. Yadier Molina is one of the very few players that has started with one team and is going to end with one team. He's played 19 years for the Cardinals. And
it's probably like Jim Boeheim.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where the playoffs are going to wind up. Pretty soon, next week, probably we'll get a pretty good idea, but we can fill in our little brackets here and we'll have a more in-depth conversation about what's going to happen. Then you get into strategies because you have a 3-game series or a 5-game series or a 7-game series. Then you got someone like the Dodgers who has 4 frontline pitchers, and 2 of them are Cy Young Award winners. So I keep harping on the Dodgers because that's what they are. Their hitting isn't doing very very well because Cody Bellinger hasn't come back off the IR in better shape than he was. He's not hitting at all. Justin Turner carries that team. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, here with Papa Joe in paradise. PJ 2 days early hanging out with us in this beautiful Travel Cafe Kubal Studios down in St. Augustine. We're happy to have you here with us as we talk baseball, college football, and the NFL. A lot of great stuff coming up. And I had to get the right attire in order to do the show with PJ. So we got the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp shirt on right now. Their AAA baseball team. And a lot of great stuff coming up with Major League Baseball. I do want to make a fantastic note about my Arizona Diamondbacks. They now have more games back than they have wins this season. 52 games out of first place of the NL West and only 50 wins. They have finally passed their win total with how many games of separation between them and the Giants.
I'll make it feel better because Baltimore and Arizona have the very same record. They've won the same and they've lost the same. Yeah. And they're both atrocious.
Well, and I do want to. We were talking about the playoffs and whatnot. The fact that the Dodgers, who a lot of people, as you said, might consider the best team in baseball, to know that the Giants, who on their website have the word resilient, and they've been that way, if the Giants win the NL West and the Dodgers have to play a 1-game series, which is not a series, it's like a play-in game. Well, think about it like this. In the NCAA tournament, you have a play-in game for who you consider the last teams to get in as far as like ranking them.
Right.
In baseball, it's different. These are very good teams trying to get in, and they just so happen to be a little bit out. Your thoughts on the fact that they call this 1 game a series? Should the wild card be 3 games? Should it be an actual series? Or is it fair to say that a team who's extremely good, who's in a race like the Giants and the Dodgers are, that one of those teams has to play in a wild card and only has 1 shot to make it into the actual playoffs? Is it fair to call it a series? Is 1 game enough?
No. I agree with you there. I want to see a 3-game series because it isn't fair. You're right. I mean, if Los Angeles, I consider the best team in baseball this year, they could conceivably be out of the playoffs if they wind up, playing a wild card St. Louis with Wainwright thrown. Wainwright can beat anyone anytime. So I'd like to see 3-game series, but if that's not the way it is, and the Dodgers really are in danger here. They've got to pick it up. They've got to hit a little bit better. They've got to support their pitchers. Kershaw pitched the other night and got blasted. Gave up 6 runs. So he's not sharp yet, but give the ball to him anytime. I'm looking for the Dodgers to make a push here. I still think that they're going to win their division and relegate San Francisco to the wild card.
The thing with the Dodgers, too, is I would say if they're getting nervous, if they're playing in that wild card game, to just throw the whole rotation at them, but you need those guys for later. So, it's definitely been an interesting year. How sad are you for the Mets that losing deGrom really just killed their season.
You know, there's a strategy that's being played out in the major leagues by more than one team. Look at the Tampa Bay Rays started it. That's his to pitch a couple innings to starter, give another inning here for another guy, inning all the way down. Now it's being picked up later in the year because you want to save your starters some arms. So I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be a strategy going forward next year. I hate to see that because I want to see deGrom go 9 innings.
Yeah.
I want to see Kershaw go 7 innings, 8 innings. I don't want to have to see some guy come in, throw 2 innings, give up 1 hit, strike out 2. Next guy pitch an inning. Next guy another inning. You know, you save your arms that way, but it's boring as hell baseball. I mean, I said, you know, I'm a purist, and I want to be able to see. I want to be able to see baseball. I want to be able to see a pitcher come up to bat if I have to. I want to see him go 6 innings at least. I want to see him strike out 7 or 8 people. You know, it's boring. It's boring the way it's set up now. But you know, Kevin Cash with Tampa, that's his theory, and he's worked it to perfection the last couple of years. You can't beat Tampa Bay right off. You got to be able to hit 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different pitchers. I mean, if you're up to plate, say you're Aaron Judge, and you come up to plate and you feel you face one guy the first inning. You don't get back up to bat again maybe till the 4th inning or the 3rd inning, and you got another guy in there. So now the hitter has to adjust. Got to go back in his brain and say, I got notes on this guy. How did I used to hit this guy? And then before you know it, another guy comes in, and Aaron Judge has faced 3 guys now in 3 at bats. So it's a pretty good strategy. It's working for them, but it's not for me.
You know, yeah, no, I love it. Listen, if it works, it works. We're going to get into football in a little bit, but I had to put this up because I thought this was very smart. They used his jersey and his number. It hurts to lose. So, you know, this is the thing. Everybody likes making fun of Cowboys fans that's not a Cowboys fan, but when the Cowboys make fun of somebody else, they tell them it's a long season. But if the Eagles had won yesterday, everybody would be calling them the Cowgirls and telling them to shut up. So listen,
right.
Fair is fair. Like with the Yankees or with Duke or with the Cowboys, you either love them or you hate them.
Right.
But if you hate them, understand something. If they had lost on Monday Night Football, you would have been all up in their grill, taking pictures and putting inappropriate stuff out there. So it hurts to lose. I just have to say, no matter who you like, that was a very creative post.
Good. That's fun. That's fun.
Cowboys went to work last night.
I see that, but I had to go to sleep.
We'll take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, PJ and I got a lot coming up. College football is about to get real. We got about 152 games to go through this week, and there's only 130 teams, so figure that one out. We'll get into it, and we'll talk about the fact about how PJ and I could retire after last year with getting 4, the majority of our predictions right. 4 we're going to talk about, and of those 4, 2 that probably many of you, and I'm sure a lot of you for sure, did not pick. One of them that we did. So PJ and I needed to call Vegas last week. We just forgot to make the phone call. We'll be back right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life.
I shall return. Slowly, but I shall return.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecabal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpassnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Here at Progressive Dental, we understand the importance of regular dental visits and preventive care. Cleanings and checkups are essential to good oral health. We have multiple locations in the Southern Tier, so come visit us in Binghamton, Enwell, Kirkwood, Montrose, and Norwich. For self-pay non-insured patients, we offer the Smile Plan, which covers all of your cleanings, x-rays, and exams for an affordable yearly price. Call 607-754-2273 or 607-754-CARE to make an appointment today. For more information, visit our website at progressivedentalny.com.
The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way out to the Millhouse Market, but first, before you go, download their app on the Google Play or Apple App Store. You'll have everything at your fingertips, as well as the ability to pay contactless. So contactless pay on the app, you could tip on the app, and the app will give you directions from wherever you are to the Millhouse Market. All in one place, you can pay, as well as see the menu and get directions to the Millhouse on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, with their homemade breads, desserts, quinoa bowls, rice bowls, salads, as well as their brick oven pizzas and all of their sandwiches named after the families to help to settle today's